When are we going to implement that? Because it's one thing for us to make such pronunciation, and it's another thing for us to begin to act it. When did he give you any timeline as to how when we will begin to?
That is a very good question, and it's at the heart of our problems. Sometimes government means well, but the process, the bureaucracy doesn't allow that well-meaning to come to fruition, and things take forever. And sometimes policies are declared but not implementable. But the minister said the president has approved, that has signed, yes, that has signed those provisions, both for infrastructure provision and also for some level of employment. So we're going to test it. I think Nigerian companies will test it to see whether this is something we can
Are you sure this will be good news for those people who have to levy you all the time?
Well,
because if you have to pay for maybe develop infrastructure in your area, and you say, okay, now I've actually done this for my area, so I'm going to pay this kind of tax. Do you think it's something that will go down well with the state governments now, who depend on the productivity of companies to generate tax?
It probably wouldn't go down well, but we need to break the mold. If we want to achieve something has to change. There has to be a change, a definite change, and this is part of it. I mean, because that's what we're saying. If you want people to bring investment to this country, both domestic and international, you must make the environment attractive. And one of the first things you do is to create a safe environment where they can do business, then have a stable policy environment, and then have an environment where people get rewards for what they have put in the market. And the moment you create that opportunity, then look for other kinds of incentives, like this one that government is talking about now, that will promote investment. But like you rightly said, will this be implemented? And will it be implemented in default?
This brings us to the next question. If our government is telling us to encouraging private investment into infrastructure development, and we have our own budgeted funds earmarked for this same project. I remember some months ago, just about a few weeks ago, where the Minister of Finance was asked to account for how the budget was spent. We're not spending all of our budgets for the year. I think about 56% has been used so far. Why are we having delays in budgetary provision, budgetary allocation, and we have infrastructures to use them for in terms of development, and this seems to affect our businesses?
Correct. I think first of all is, sometimes it could be the issue of the misalignment between budget and cash availability. I think the budget is supposed to be cash backed, and that's through the revenue of government, both oil and non-oil. So sometimes there is delay. And also, in government expenditure, there's also what they call deficit, because government is spending more money than it's earning. So it needs to fund that deficit. And sometimes
is it that it uses part of the budgeted funds to fund deficits?
No, it means that a budget is made. Let's say you want to spend 100 naira, but all you have is 80 naira. You need 20 naira.
So how does it make up?
They borrow it.
They buy bonds.
They borrow it. Yes, that's it. They borrow it from.
But the question is, why do we have to delay for the ones that we're not going to borrow it and you have it on ground?
Yeah,
why
so
don't you
I'm just coming. I'm saying that first, it could be an issue. A misalignment between cash availability and the budget. Number two is also bureaucracy. I remember in one of the committees that I serve now, between the time there was an approval for some expenditure and the time the money was received, like 3-4 months, and we operated without fund. So that is bureaucracy. Number three is absolutely lack of accountability, where we say health for all by the year 2000. And we arrive at year 2000, nobody has health. In fact, we have worse health. And everybody goes on. Housing for all, those kind of things. That's one thing that I've been lacking. Nobody is held responsible for poor performance or inability to achieve a particular target, which is what I said again. The president seemed to have understood by now getting his ministers to sign a contract these are the things you will accomplish at a particular date. And so you don't cross your hands and say, I haven't seen the budget. The money has not been released, as if it's somebody else's business. You go after the money. Number two is that the man whose job is to release the money also has his own KPI. And therefore, if you don't release the money at appropriate time, you have failed. So we need to measure performance, metrics. That's what happens for private sector. And that's why private sector seems to be doing slightly well, because there is accountability, there is a measurement of your performance, and there are rewards and punishments pertaining to those levels of performance. This is what is happening in the government. There has been no measurable consequence for not doing the right thing. So people are lackadaisical, they do what they like, they do it at their own convenience, time and pace. But if we put pressure on ourselves and say we must achieve these goals, then everything begins to work. And the leader is the president. The moment the president says, I want this done, if you don't do it, I do this to you, people wake up. Okay. I mean, I have had that experience where the president intervenes on a thing, something that was said was impossible, it will take 1 year, happens the next day. So it shows that the leadership has to push and put the right people to it. I mean, the president can't push on all sectors.
Yeah, well, I'm just going to say that it cannot be everywhere.
Yeah, it can't.
Well, because if you put people in there to run the show, and that seems not to be performing, perhaps maybe we should have access to the content of that
contract.
Of that contract.
Yes.
Let's understand what each minister had signed. You know, and because all of this seems to affect our economy at the end of the day, and what we actually get by the end of a particular period of time.
I think the Freedom of Information Bill allows the media to ask for that information. It's a public document. What are the KPIs we're now speaking about? Because that is the thing we're talking about. We're putting so much hope on it. So it's important, and the media is in a position to monitor the accomplishment of this KPIs, because this country just has to move. We are tired of lagging behind. You look at the reports you're seeing, whether it is 2012, 2006, is it Human Development Index, is it Competitive Index, is it other global ratings? We are not making much progress. In a few, we have a few improvements. Then the next year, we are going further down. You know, in Global Competitive Index, we were 94 in 2009. Now we're either 133 in 2011 or 117 in 2012. So we're just not moving consistently. And as we had earlier spoken about inconsistency. But I think the way the government seems to be getting it now may be the way to go. And therefore, at the end of the year, we're going to sit down and say, sir, what did you promise Nigerians? What did you say you're going to deliver? 6,000 megawatts, 4,000 megawatts, this level of infant mortality, this level of maternal mortality, this level of unemployment. Look at the United States. The whole election talk is about jobs. How many jobs are being created? What is the level of unemployment? That is the issue. So Obama, the president, is forced to do something. And the incoming president, whoever he will be measured. So our country has gotten to that level where we need to ask people, you want to be Mr. Governor, you want to be Mr. Chairman of local government, what did you do the last time? Or where are you coming from? What evidence do we have that you can hold our job? You can't fulfill the promises you're making. Until we get that level, Nigeria will continue to go through this system of one step forward, one step, two steps backwards, which hurts all of us, because we ought to be creating more wealth. Our poverty rate of 70% is scandalous. A country like this, 70% of Nigerians are poor, and comparatively, they were richer 20 years ago. And yet we are earning a lot more money. Something is wrong with our management.